What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Get Your Bell Rung Football Podcast. He is Kevin Reynolds. I am Bobby Wall, and we are here to talk all things football and hit you with some takes that might rattle you up a bit. We've had a 2-week hiatus, but we are back. We are better than ever and ready to get rolling here. On tonight's show, we are going to discuss some news and notes. We have some listener questions, and we are going to get into the SiriusXM Host Dynasty League, complete with IDP players that I am a part of. We'll break that down and get into that. The draft is happening right now. But first, Kevin Reynolds, how are you?
Hanging in there, brother. Been a busy few weeks. It's been counties, regionals, and now states, so I have been home to basically sleep.
Excellent. While you were doing that, I was busy. Those of us who are not seeing the video, I am holding my championship belt that I won. Maybe, what was it, 2 Saturdays ago? I hosted the first ever dad games where 5 like-minded fathers got together in my backyard. We played a 5-man tournament of cornhole, putt-putt pong, can jam, a game I had never played called beer ball, and of course beer pong. And I, surprising to no one, walked away as the grand champion. So I have a belt that I will have for the next year until we do it again next summer. And I think you should join us next summer, Kev.
Perhaps. It sounds a little Bud Light to me, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to partake in that.
Well, I tell you what, buddy, one thing that was nice is this past weekend I drove up to Maryland and got to see you face to face.
I'm a handsome devil.
Well, that's up for debate, but I do enjoy our time spent together, so that was nice.
Yeah, we had a little frisbee with the boy. It's on the back deck. Did it eventually rain at your dad's house? Because it poured on me on the way home.
It did. Yep, on the way to dinner.
I was so close to betting your dad $10 that it was going to rain, and I decided not to. So I figured he knows better than me what's going to happen at his own house. All good.
Actually,
though.
It didn't. I don't know, because we were gone when it rained, so I'm not sure if it actually rained there or not. My dad claims that it never rains at his house.
Right.
The clouds
north,
split
part goes south
over top of his roof, and it never rains on his lawn. That's
we knew it was going to, because we saw the radar and we could see it coming from the mountain. We could see the rain coming, but
don't tell that to Bob Senior.
It was a good time getting to see. I haven't actually seen you in person for some time.
It's been a while. I know.
Good times.
All right, so I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What do Geno Smith, Drew Brees, Rich Gannon, Trent Green, Doug Flutie, Elvis Grbac, Steve Berline, just to name a few, have in common?
I don't have a clue. They're all quarterbacks.
Well, that's true. And they all needed a few years and a new team to break out. So
Stevie B with the Panthers.
Yeah.
He was my quarterback back in the mid-90s, late 90s at one point in the league that I was in. There was 1 point per completion. He was throwing about 55 times a game. I was just racking up points with Stevie B of all people, because it was just throw, run. Throw, run. It was great.
Well, sir, is there any chance that Baker Mayfield is the next quarterback to make that jump?
No.
None at all.
0.
Wow. So now keep in mind, it took Rich Gannon 11 years to make a Pro Bowl. The fact that he stuck around that long and became that good. Yeah. I mean, he was the MVP, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. The year
that's impressive.
Lost in the Super Bowl to the Bucks?
Yes. They had a chance to go back again. Was it the next year with a Brady fumble, the tuck rule?
I don't know if that was before that or after that. No, I thought
that was the AFC Championship game, right?
I thought the tuck rule was the year before Oakland made it. Maybe not. I don't know. I can't keep all straight. Maybe it was somewhere. The Ravens won a Super Bowl. Then it was the Patriots, then the Bucks, and then the Patriots twice in a row, wasn't it?
Dude, how do I know? We'll look it up. But let me give you some stats on Baker Mayfield.
Here's my issue though. Before you start your stats,
Yeah, go ahead.
is Tom Brady himself wasn't a bad year last year, but it wasn't really stellar numbers himself. How can I expect Baker Mayfield to come in and put up anything close to Tom Brady numbers with the same essential lineup, but now with a team that's expected to likely be in the bottom 5 or 6 teams in the league?
So I don't know what Brady's numbers were last year, but they could possibly be close to Baker's career year. You know
That's
what I
what I'm
mean?
saying. So I don't think he's going to be revived. I mean, if anything, the Bucks are going to be even worse than they were last year.
Maybe. Baker's got no Pro Bowls, but in 2020, he led the Browns to an 11-5 record. He had 3,500 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, only 8 picks.
Yeah.
His top 5 receivers that year, Jarvis Landry was 72 for 840 and 3. Austin Hooper, Kareem Hunt, Rashad Higgins, and Harrison Bryant. No one had more than 5 touchdown catches, and the guy who had 5 was a running back, Kareem Hunt. His weapons right now are far better than those guys. He's got Mike Evans, he's got Chris Godwin, he's got Russell Gage, Cade Otton, the tight end. I would take Cade Otton right now over Austin Hooper, Harrison Bryant. He's got his best weapons. He's done decent. Again, no Pro Bowl, but that's kind of a popularity contest anyway. I don't know, man. I'm not going to say no. I'm less than 50%, but I'm closer to 50 than I'm 0. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm saying no.
All right, then.
I mean, what are you talking about here? You're thinking like he's going to be in the Pro Bowl, he's going to be All Pro, he's going to be the league MVP. What level of improvement are you talking here?
Well, I mean, what if he puts up, let's call it 4,000, 4,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, 10 picks?
Yeah, that's not happening.
Okay. I mean, I think I don't know. Between Mike Evans and Chris Godwin alone could push for 20 touchdowns total right there.
You hitting the bourbon pretty hard tonight, huh?
I'm hitting straight water.
Straight water.
It's good stuff.
Fair enough.
I
don't know what to tell you. This is a hard sell to me. I actually like Baker Mayfield. I was a big fan of his coming out of college, but I just
how many people
I
looked at
think
Rich
he's still
Gannon?
great at hyping himself up, and he seems like a cool dude to have a beer with. I just can't see him going down to Tampa Bay, and all of a sudden his career is revived. And I mean, this is what, his 4th team now?
3rd.
Well,
What do you go? Browns, Rams. Wait, did he Panthers?
Was he with the Panthers, then the Rams, and now Bucks. This is his 4th team.
Yeah,
maybe I'll root for the guy. Don't get me wrong, but he's not going to be on any of my teams. I'm not wasting money on him.
No. I'm not saying draft him, but he could be someone you want to.
You just told me 4,200, 30, and 10. Why would you not want him on your fantasy team? That's a pretty good number.
Well, that's not a prediction of what he's going to do. That's hey, what if things go right? Could this be an outcome? And if it is, he's the guy you're going to pick up off the waiver wire.
What if pigs start flying? And what if I win the Powerball tomorrow? I mean, come on, buddy.
It's all projections, Kevin. That's what this is. That's what we do.
Have you ever heard the phrase, don't bullshit a bullshitter? Come on.
All right. Ready for this, Kevin?
Oh, I'm ready, baby.
Your boy Elvis Gerbach.
Oh, I love Elvis.
I know. He played for your Ravens, right?
He did.
He was in the league 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Right.
Okay. The most passing yards he had in a season was 1,900. He had 11 touchdowns. Okay. Then all of a sudden, he jumps up to 3,400 yards passing and 22 touchdowns. And the next year, had 4,100 yards and 28 scores.
Okay.
I'm telling you right now, in 1998, no one said, oh, Elvis Gerbach's going to be the guy. And then all of a sudden, Elvis Gerbach was kind of a guy.
So you're doing a classic debate here. You only list the quarterbacks, the 10% of all these quarterbacks that actually did improve. You pretend as though the other 90% don't exist, who never turned things around. So you asked me the question. You're not going to convince me that he's going to turn, because I just don't see it happening. I will root for him. Don't get me wrong. I like the guy. I just don't see it. I don't think there's going to be this radical Jim Plunkett thing where all of a sudden he's going to Super Bowls and winning MVPs. Don't see it.
Thank you for adding another guy to my list.
Yeah.
I'm not forgetting the 90%. I'm asking if you think Baker could be one of the 10%.
I don't think he will,
no.
But you seem to not be buying what I'm selling and just keep going on stat after stat, person after person about why I'm wrong. Like I said, I'll root for it because I like Baker Mayfield. I just don't think it's going to happen.
It'd be boring if we just agreed with each other all the time.
True. I'm not even certain they really want him there. I think he's just there as a stopgap guy. They know they're going to win about 4 games this year, and they've had to bring in somebody.
I'm not even certain he's going to be the starter, because Kyle Trask could beat him out.
He could.
But for this exercise, I'm going to go pro Baker. Again, I think there's a closer to 50% chance that he would than 0, but I definitely don't think it's anywhere near 100.
Well, I can't put 0 because 0 is stupid, because obviously that could happen.
Right.
But I'm going much closer to 0 than 50. You're going closer to 50 than 0. So I'm probably at like 20%. You're probably at like 40%. Either way, again, I'll root for the guy. I like his funny commercials. Let's get some new commercial about how he lives at Raymond James Stadium. That'd be cool with me. I love Godwin and what's his face, Mike Evans, your boy. So why not go for it? I just be really surprised if it happens. And they're going to be awful. They're really not going to be good. They have a legitimate shot of coming in last place in that division. So I think all the other 3 teams have improved, and they all suck. But the other 3 have actually improved. Tampa's done pretty much nothing to improve.
They at least have an opportunity to win their division, though. Like, that's the only thing they have going for them. Is that they
didn't have Brady last year. They'd have won like 2 games. He willed them to somehow win, 8?
He still wasn't good, though.
He wasn't great, but dude, they got the serious dropsies. Nobody's running the correct routes. He wasn't terrible. It just wasn't good. It's like everybody's on a different page. And what have they done? They got the same coaching staff. So what have they done to change that? Nothing.
Yeah, he had, good grief, Brady threw the ball 733 times last year. 490
behind all the time. They had no running game.
The most attempts and completions of his career. The dude's, what was he, 44?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually think it was 45 last year, wasn't he? I mean, either way, he was very old for a football player. But I don't think he played. When you see like his PFF grades, they were still great. So everything around him just fell to pieces.
45 is right. He'll be 46 in August.
Yeah.
What a stud.
He willed them to that division title. They sucked. They were awful. And he found a way to at least get them there.
That is so impressive. 46 years old. All right. So we have some listener questions. You ready for these?
I am. Throw them at me, homeboy.
Question number 1. What do I do with Kenneth Walker? Think for a minute. Walker hit 1,000 yards last year, 9 touchdowns in 15 games. He only started 11 because when the season began, Rashad Penny was the guy. But Pete Carroll and the Seahawks drafted my guy, Zach Charbonnet, in the 2nd round at some serious draft capital. Personally, I like both of them. Walker is going as RB14 and pick number 34, so just at the end of the 3rd round on Fantasy Pros half-point PPR ADP. Charbonnet is running back 34 and pick 101. But let's say it's a keeper league, something like that. What do we do with Kenneth Walker? Or where do we draft him if it's just a redraft?
That's the thing. We need a lot more prayers. Like, what do I do with him? I don't know what that means. Like, because we don't have more info, but he's still going to have a huge year. Pete Carroll loves bell cow backs. So they just always get hurt. Ken Walker's going to be fine. Game 1, he's going to go out, probably have 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then we're going to forget Charbonnet even exists until Walker gets hurt again. Well, he's a rookie.
It breaks my heart.
Most rookies don't go out there and dominate, especially when there's a guy there already who was projected to be probably one of the top 3 to 5 backs in the league until they went and pulled that. I think he's more of an amazing backup plan in case something goes wrong. But dude, I'd love to still have KWalker on my team. I'd have zero reservations about it. But no, I don't necessarily think he's a top 3 pick anymore.
Right.
I definitely don't think that.
I thought before the draft that he was a first round pick.
Right.
I mean, you're picking 8th, 9th, 10th, something like that in the first round, then we can start talking Kenneth Walker. But now he's going at the end of the 3rd, and I don't mind him there. And if it's redraft end of the 3rd, I'm cool with that, especially if I skip on RB early, if I wide receiver, something like that, or I grab Kelsey in the 1st. I don't mind taking Walker there at the end of the 3rd. If it's a keeper league, I mean, I guess anything after that, then I'm certainly not keeping him for anything more than that. And it just, if there's no round penalty, it would depend on who my other options are. Who anti Kenneth Walker is he's never been much of a pass catcher, not in college, not last year. And Charbonnet was arguably the best pass catching back in
neither
this
was
draft.
Marshawn Lynch, but look what the numbers he put up.
Yes.
They're not a big back
correct.
catching, pass catching team anyway, are they?
No, not historically. But I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe Charbonnet plays more 3rd downs than we anticipate. And all of a sudden, Kenneth Walker's the baby back. Charbonnet's bigger than he is. So maybe Walker loses some goal line carries, which I think is wild and silly because Walker's great. But pro Walker, he's phenomenal and was one of the best looking running backs in the game last year. He can hit a home run on any play. And the Seahawks normally stick with their guy. And then you brought that up. Last year, they draft Kenneth Walker, but who's the starter? Rashad Penny. When they drafted Rashad Penny was a 1st round pick, and he rode the bench behind Chris Carson, who's a 7th round pick.
Yeah, but partially because Penny was hurt
sure.
all the time. In his career, he's played less games than he's missed.
But Carson, correct. But Carson also was a Seattle guy. He knew the system. He was trusted. And
he
if
played
you trust,
well.
Right. And
as much as a weirdo hippie Pete Carroll is, he likes to win. He likes to run. And it's hard. He's not stupid. It's hard to just pretend that Kenneth Walker is not the best back on your team and pretend that he didn't put up the year he did last year. I mean, I just, again, yeah, okay, maybe it just knocks him around. But in a dynasty league, even say he doesn't play as much. Say, what's his name? Charbonnet starts kicking butt, plays more. Well, then in a dynasty league in 2 years, then Walker's going to be out of Seattle anyway. Let him start for some other team.
So sitting here right now, May 24th, what's the highest you take Walker?
Well, it depends on how big of a league we're talking. We're talking just a standard, like
12 team.
Half-point PPR, 12
half point
league.
PPR. Yep.
The earliest I'd probably take him, if it's a complete redraft, probably early to mid 2nd round.
Wow.
I think he's still going to have a big year. I don't care about Shardy. I know you're in love with the dude, and so a few other people are, but I really don't think he's going to have a huge impact on his usage, especially on 1st and 2nd down.
I'm probably mid 3rd. It's probably as early as I'm going to go on Walker sitting here right now. But I love that early 2nd. That's
I think it's still going to be fine. I just don't see this becoming some huge problem like other people do.
That's great. I do think though this might be a Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison situation where if you take Walker, you're going to have to not have to, but you should probably reach for Charbonnet to make sure you have that handcuff because they got nothing else there.
Yeah, take him a round earlier than you would or anybody else would have, maybe even a round and a half earlier than somebody else would.
Yeah. And because you never wanted to be the guy who drafted Dalvin Cook.
But let's look at that.
3rd overall.
Let's look at that situation. As good as Madison was, and as much we knew he would play, Dalvin Cook still always a 1st round pick, in many leagues a top 3 or 4 pick for a couple years in a row there. So we didn't all of a sudden think that his value just completely plummeted because they got a good backup.
Well said. You know what? Instead of taking in the mid 3rd, I'll take Walker to 305 instead of 306. How's that sound?
It doesn't bother me one way or the other. You take him wherever you want to, big boy. I'm just telling you where I would take him. I don't even have to worry about it because in my league of record, he has a 5-year contract so I can't touch him.
It's trade. It's always trades.
No, nobody's going to trade him for the amount of money he paid him last year and that contract. He's getting like a seventh rounder's freaking money for a first, second round talent. You don't trade guys like that in that league.
Sure. All right. Next one. I have an opportunity to keep Jameis Williams in the double-digit rounds. Should I?
Jameson Williams, you say?
Jameson Williams, yes.
Are you talking about you or somebody else?
Not me.
What are the parameters of this league?
We're going to operate as if everything is 12-team half-point PPR.
Okay.
For me, so his current ADP is wide receiver 49 and pick 117, which is the 10th round. So if I am drafting, if I'm trying to keep, I don't think I do it. I don't think I keep Jameson Williams. I throw him back because he hasn't played much. What, 3 games or something? Couple games last year. Granted, he looked great out there.
Yeah,
but he's coming back. He's suspended the first 6 games. You can get him in the double-digit rounds anyway. You probably have someone else on your team better to keep. I don't want to keep. See, when I'm picking a keeper, I want value. I don't want to keep a guy where he's going to get drafted anyway. I want like if I'm keeping Jameson Williams, I better get him in the 16th round or something. Then I might think about it. But if I'm getting him in the 10th, 11th, 12th, I mean, he might go there anyway.
So the guy that you got in 12th, you could keep him at 12th. Now, if you feel as though there might be some magical player that later in the draft could be there that would be nobody noticed, then I guess you'd be find your 12th round pick to be that exciting. I know he's going to miss 6 games, but man, that's a guy that without those 6 games, he would go higher. So
right.
My thought is find a way to cover those points in the 6, keep him, because now you're getting massive value, because ultimately, as you know, we build our teams to do well in the regular season, well enough to make the playoffs and then win the playoffs. If this guy's going to be there for the playoffs, then I'll gladly still keep him in that slot because I'm not getting any danger of anything. I just have to play a different flex guy for 6 games. Do you see my logic there? Like,
yes, no, I definitely do.
You're getting this discount. So yes, you're going to miss 6 games, but for the rest of the year, you're getting what would have probably been like a 7th round guy for 12th round draft capital.
So would you rather, let me check out some ADP real quick. So would you rather use Jameson Williams as your keeper in the 10th or Jalen Waddle, who's going as overall player 23, so end of the 2nd? Or would you rather take Jalen Waddle in the 4th?
Well, Jalen Waddle in the 4th because he was like the number 7 receiver last year.
And you're getting a value. Because right now he's being drafted as he's the 11th overall receiver. 23rd.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I would want Waddle just because of the sheer numbers and what they do. But I don't understand what that has to do with this conversation.
So, okay, let's go down the list a little bit. How about Christian Kirk, who's going basically at the at the end of the 5th round? Would you rather have Kirk in the 7th or would you rather have Jameson in the 12th?
That's a close one there. I again don't have any idea what this has to do with this question.
Listen, you're choosing to keep Jameson where he's going to get drafted. I choose to take players for value where I can keep them later than they would potentially go in the draft.
See, to me, I think that's still huge value for when he comes back from his suspension. I just don't even care about the 6 games he's missing. Same as I got D-Hop last year. I didn't care that he was missing. I want him from when he came back. So I value that differently. That's why I don't understand. It's like an apples and oranges question you're asking me here now. I guess because I don't think Kirk will have as big of a year because Ridley, I think, is going to actually he keeps his head on straight and can stay out of the casino.
He's so good.
He's going to take over a lot of targets. I don't know. I still have no problem with anybody keeping James Williams in the 12th round. If you have something drastically better, like say like your one league where you drafted a guy in the 9th and now you can keep him in the 7th who should be going in the 2nd, then okay, then I get it.
That was Nick Chubb for me, baby.
But
Several years.
But yeah, Kirk in like the 7th isn't that much more of a value, I don't think, than getting Williams in the 12th. You just have to have a different flex for 6 games. And 3 or 4 of those weeks, there's not even a bye. So you got plenty of people in your roster. So maybe for 2 weeks, you actually have to really maybe finagle some things to cover his points.
I like this. I like when we don't necessarily see eye to eye.
Yeah, I think it's 2 different questions though. So what you'd have to do is see the rest of his lineup and see who he did have and who it maybe there is that thing that's just like staring you in the face, like, well, yeah, it's nice. I like how Jameson Williams for the second half of the year getting this guy in the 7th. I just don't necessarily think Christian Kirk is that guy, though he surprised us all last year.
He sure did.
Jacksonville's made it very clear that he is no longer their number 1 receiver. Calvin Ridley is.
Right. We'll see. I mean, you bring Calvin Ridley in, and don't get me wrong, he is the guy. He is the talent. He hadn't played football in like 2 years.
He hasn't. I'm not saying he's going to be immediately jump out there and be amazing. Right. But then you also, because he's so young, there's that school of thought that, yeah, he's taken the last year and a half off. He's very, very healthy. He's ready to go. He's hungry. I don't think it's as much the talent thing. I just think that they got Ridley for a purpose. They're saying he's everything I see online said he's the best looking guy in every OTAs in the country right now. And I just can't imagine that they're not going to force feed him the ball a little bit.
I agree. But again, if we're going devil's advocate, you have a receiver in Christian Kirk, who was a young, up-and-coming quarterback's go-to guy. He led the team in targets and receptions. Now, granted, it was close because Zay Jones stepped up towards the end of the year, but he also led the team in touchdowns. So Lawrence has leaned on Kirk already, and we'll see what happens. And if you're a defense and you have to focus on somebody, a receiver in that offense, it's going to be Ridley because you're not worried about Kirk. Kirk's going to nickel and dime you to death. You just don't want Ridley to beat you for 20, 30-yard gain.
That is correct. So, and another thing with Jameson Williams is Chark is going now. So he's moving up. His role's also going to move up. He's, the number 2 guy there now. And I guess some people could say, since he's the outside guy, that officially he's number 1. I'd be unbelievably surprised, as I think anybody would, if he outscores St. Brown. But I think him in the 12th, even with the 6-game suspension, still pretty intense.
And we could have multiple productive receivers in this off. Trevor Lawrence is good enough to give us. Now, I'm not going to say that Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk are going to be 2 top 12 receivers, but if they both finish in the top 20 fantasy, I wouldn't be too surprised.
Right. Yeah,
I think they'll be able to do that.
See how this all goes down, buddy.
All right, last listener question, and I promise this was not from me, but what will the Eagles' approach be to the run game? While you're thinking about that, Kevin, last year they had the 5th most rushing yards and the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL. For me, it's hard for me to think that this year is going to be any worse. They might even be better at running the ball. They still have a great offensive line. I think they overall upgraded at the running back position. We love Miles Sanders, but they signed Rashad Penny to a 1-year, $1 million deal. And then they went out and traded for DeAndre Swift. You mentioned already Rashad Penny. He's played in 14 games, 10, 3, 10, and 5 in his career. Never a full season, but he's averaged 5.7 yards a carry on his career. Big if, he can stay on the field, I cannot. I mean, we're talking, 1,600-yard season for this guy if he could actually play the whole season in this offense with this offensive line. Whew, that'd be awesome. We both, as soon as they signed Penny, I remember you called me and you were like, wow.
Yeah,
this could be great.
They'll still just use them wrong. And now there's just an extract. Now there's 4 of them that they'll use instead of 3. So you and I can sit there and watch Swift rack up 73 yards on 5 carries in the first half, and then they'll give him one catch for 2 yards and one run for 4 yards in the second half. Meanwhile,
That's
Jalen Hurts, they throw him into harm's way, have him rush 9 times in the second half, including all the goal line work, so that he can hopefully get hurt.
That's what being a Miles Sanders owner has taught us.
Yes. So as a group, I can't imagine they won't be every bit as good, if not better. Our hope would be that they actually start using their running backs instead of treating their quarterback like their number one running back. They'll likely get better. As for fantasy people, it's just going to be more and more frustration. As an Eagles fan for you, my phone will have all kinds of cuss words. Who's the little fella?
Oh, Boston Scott.
Yeah, cuss, Boston Scott. Cuss, Boston Scott. Cuss. Who's the other one? The other annoying one? Kenneth Gainwell. While our other two guys are over on the sideline with their jacket on and their helmet sitting beside them on the bench.
I do appreciate that by the end of last year, you were also texting me about Boston Scott.
Because I had Miles Sanders.
I know.
I used to love Boston Scott, but now I freaking hate him.
That's right. And you know what's weird is with how injury prone we know DeAndre Swift is. He's been in the league 3 years. He played 13 games, and 14 games. It seems like he misses so much more time than that. He himself, 5.5 yards a carry last year, and averages more than 50 catches a year as a receiving back, which he's so good at. It feels like they have what they wanted in Miles Sanders, but they just got 2 different guys to do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And Miles Sanders had 50 catches his rookie year, and then they stopped throwing to him for some reason. I don't understand. So my question to you, where do you think these guys, well, first off, what do you think this usage is going to be? Is Penny going to be the early down guy?
I don't think
Swift
so.
is. I think they're going to alternate drives.
They might.
One drive is Penny,
but
one
I
drive
do
is Swift.
think the Eagles will go out of their way to make Swift the guy, per se, but the guy in that offense with 4 running backs is the guy that gets 40% of the work. The next guy gets 30. The next 2 guys each get 15. From a fantasy standpoint, this is maybe the biggest running back nightmare in the history of fantasy football. From the Eagles standpoint, it's absolutely brilliant. They'll all be fresh. Any one of them gets hurt, who cares? You got 3 more. Should this help Jalen Hurts? It should, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on the team like number 2 in carries.
Why do you think they're going to try to make Swift the guy?
I think that the trade, the name, the notoriety, everything of him, I just think I think if they thought more of Penny, they wouldn't have even traded for Swift, and they would have paid him more than this minuscule little contract he signed.
And I think that's why they're going to ride Penny, because they got him for 1 year for $1 million. Let's give this guy all he can handle. And if he falls apart, we got Swift
I don't think it's if.
Yeah, true.
It's right, when.
So right now.
But you made when this all happened during the draft, you made an interesting point. The 2 of them together are basically one running back because they both average missing about half a season. So it'll be one of them will be for 4 games, then another one for 3 games, the other one then for 2 games. And essentially they just have this permanent backup, the same as you do like with the Dalvin Cook Madison. It doesn't matter if one or the other gets hurt, you still have the guy. How many games do you think those 2 will actually be on the field significantly in the same game? 6?
Well,
7?
I'll tell you what's interesting. Right now, Swift's ADP is fairly significantly higher. He's RB23 and going in the 6th round, pick 63. Rashad Penny is running back 38. So we're talking a 15-player difference between there.
That's half.
And he's going 50 picks after him. He's going at 111.
So you
could easily end up with both of these guys on your team.
So your thing, though, from your standpoint, that Penny's the much greater value. So just wait and grab him.
Yeah, honestly, dude, what I try to do, because I know there are always biases internally, even if you don't think that there are. I usually, whenever I rank all my players, now last year was different with Jalen Hurts, but I'll usually take my Eagles players, rank everybody, and then I'll drop them half a round, sometimes a full round, just because I want to take out any biases I have. It's going to be tough for me to do with these running backs, man. It's so hard not to think about what Rashad Penny could do if he could stay healthy in this offense. It's going to be tough for me, man.
The same
I
thing
already
in
know.
Seattle. What he could have done. Look
I
what he
know.
did do when he was healthy. You're
But
just living
this
some
offensive
pipe dream.
line,
These are big ifs. These aren't guys that just had a
I know.
freak injury and missed a year. These are guys that are hurt every year.
But these
Both
are
of
also
them.
going to be, I mean, Rashad Penny at 30, he's an RB4 right now. RB30,
Yeah.
that's a running back 4.
People don't do you fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times, fool me 4 times, fool me 5 times. People eventually are just like, okay, I've had enough of this.
Not
I've
me.
had
Give
enough of
me
this.
more.
You guys want him in the 6th round. He's all yours. I'm not touching
I
him.
want more.
We'd all
More
love for
pain,
him to
more
have great
heartache.
years. If they were, they wouldn't be moving around teams like this.
Very
But
true.
when you can't stay on the field, it doesn't matter your talent. It doesn't mean much when you're just in rehab all the time. Something else is torn.
All right. You ready to move on to this wild and crazy draft I'm in?
Go for it, buddy.
All right. So first off, I want to say I won't throw him under the bus, but he is a significant voice on SiriusXM Radio. Had the first overall pick. So hold on, let me back up. In the entire league, there are 32 teams, but it's 2 16-team divisions, and you play everyone in or conferences, and you play everyone in your conference, and the winner of each conference plays each other for the championship to see who the winner is. In my conference, the first overall pick, we get 10 hours per pick. It took him 8.5 hours to click Bijan Robinson. I was driving home from work. The draft started Monday at 10 a.m. At 4:30, driving home from work, or maybe it was 3:30, whatever time it was, the Jeff Mans and Ray Flowers were bitching and moaning about this guy taking forever to make this because they're also in the league.
And he's had the first pick for how many months?
Forever. And the commissioner, I texted him and I was like, what is going on? He goes, look, man, I texted him. He knows he's up. I don't know. It took him 8 of the 10 hours just to click the guy that everyone knew he was going to click. What are we doing? At 10:01, you click Bijan Robinson and you move on.
That's it.
Man.
I've only done a couple email drafts in my life, and that was very early on, long ago. Only one of them ever was I the first pick. It was one of those things like the draft started like 9 a.m. At 9 a.m., my pick was in because I knew I was taking Marshall Faulk for 3 months.
Right. Of course.
Why am I going to hold this up and pretend that I may be taking Peyton Manning?
You may have
Marshall Faulk.
You may have known you were taking Bijan Robinson last year.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Whatever. So, and Dynasty is a totally different animal, and you get a taste of it because you don't get your guys forever, but you could have most of the guys on your team for up to 5 years if you work the contracts right and all that stuff.
Everybody on your team for up to 5 years if you do it right.
Right. So similar, but not exactly the same. You're really going youth, and once a dynasty starts, every draft after that is just rookies because they're on your team. They technically forever if you want them to be on. One thing that makes this league unique is that there are 9 offensive players like starters, but there are 11 defensive starters because it's also oh my gosh. Thank you. I was thinking ADP because that's what we've been talking about. IDP. Thank you. And that makes it very, very tricky because normally when you're talking about rookie dynasty drafts, it's only offensive players, but the defensive players are very overvalued and the scoring system's a little different. For example, 13 of the top 30 scoring players in this team last year were defensive players, and most of those were defensive tackles. The highest scoring defensive player was Alucon from Jacksonville, the linebacker, but then Cameron Hayward was the 9th overall scoring player, and he's a defensive tackle. Deron Payne was 2 players behind him, and then Chris Jones. So they really value the defensive tackle here. And we talked about it a little bit last year whenever, if you recall during the draft, I was scooping up all these defensive players while they were drafting 6th-round wide receivers that are never going to mount anything. It's kind of, I don't know, throw me for a loop. But anyway, the first round in this draft went as follows. Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs went 2nd. Anthony Richardson, who I was kind of hoping would fall to me at 9 as I need help at the quarterback position. JSN went 4th. Will Anderson, the first defensive player and only one so far, went 5th. Zach Charbonnet. Nope, I'm lying. I'm in the wrong conference. My apologies. Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, JSN. Then Dalton Kincaid went 4th. Anthony Richardson went 5th. I still want him to fall to me. Then Kendre Miller went 6th, which I thought, and you as well, sort of an interesting pick there. But again, this is 100% projections, where you think this guy's going to go, what you think his career is going to look like. And that's what makes these.
What we think is going to happen to Alvin Kamara, both in the short and long term.
Right. That's what makes these rookie drafts so hard, is you're not projecting for a season, right? That's one thing. You are literally trying to figure out what this guy's career looks like. Quentin Johnson went 7th. Jordan Addison went 8th, which I was kind of happy for, because if he'd have made it to 9th where I picked, I was going to have a conundrum. You and I both agree Addison is probably the favorite to score the most points out of the wide receivers this season.
This year, yes.
But as a career, I'm not so sure about that. I took CJ Stroud at 9. As I mentioned, I needed a quarterback.
So you were handcuffed. You had to take care of business.
So right now, because I'm afraid to drop him, I still have Tom Brady. But I also, this was an orphan team last year. So last year was my first year with this team. I adopted it. So I had Brady and Stafford, which, come on. What I thought I was in a good spot, and I ended up being in the worst spot. But I had both of those, and Kyle Trask and Davis Mills. So knowing that, I go in here. If I take CJ Stroud, I think he'll be better real life than fantasy. I was talking to one of our listeners, John McGrogan, and I was telling him, if I had to see CJ Stroud, what I think is he's probably going to be a quarterback 12 to 20 every single season. And then he might hop in around QB 8 or so for a year or two. And I think that's probably a decent outlook.
I can buy that.
Right. But for me, I kind of need that right now because I don't have much else.
You need pretty much anything, because none of us trust Matthew Stafford to make it past week 3.
And having Davis Mills sort of pushed me in the way of Stroud as well, because now, no matter what, I have a starting quarterback.
Like we were just talking about the running back thing, right? You have a starter, whether one of them gets hurt, one of them's benched, whatever it is, you have the starter.
Right.
Granted, for the worst team in the league, but that's besides the point.
I know. But again, this is forever, right?
Yeah. It might not be this year. Play Matt Stafford, hopefully this year. And then these guys, these rookies will show you something. You'll have them for many years.
And it's not like the AFC South is the strongest division either, right? Kind of like the NFC South. Now, they got the Jaguars who are up and coming, but we've only seen 1 year of good Jaguar football.
Yeah, but I can't imagine them taking a turn south. It's too young, too talented, and too good of a coach.
I'm with you. So Zay Flowers went next at 110, then Will Anderson, first defensive player, Rashee Rice, Zach Charbonnet, and then Devon A-Chain went 14th. So we have 2 more picks left actually in the first. We have the 115 and the 116 before round 2 starts, and it's a 6-round draft. So you really got to know your folks to be in a league like this. So you have 16 players, 6 rounds. You're the mathematician, but that's a lot of prospects.
It's not even, I don't even think it's as much the players, because you can always look online and just find a cheat sheet that tells you projections, who should probably go next. What's important in this league is, but I'm just saying it gives you an idea. What's important in this league is understanding the subtleties in the scoring of the different positions. What is weighted more, what is not. You might be saying to yourself, someone's saying, well, why would you take this linebacker over this corner? Well, here's why, because corners don't score crap in this league. Linebackers do. I understand the NFL, this corner is a million times more valuable and better, but who cares? We're playing in a fantasy league where I need points. And if this guy who's not a Pro Bowler is going to get me 130 points, this guy who is a Pro Bowler is going to get me 60 at a different position, I'm taking the 130.
Can I give you a perfect example? My last pick last year was the 15th round, or the 15th pick in the 5th round, and I took Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
Okay. That dude lasted 70. It was a 79th overall pick. Sauce Gardner in real life, that dude is going near the top in the draft. You know what I mean? But like you said, corners don't score all that, especially a shutdown guy.
Yes, they
like
don't
Sauce.
even
Now,
throw to him.
right now, I got him 2 reasons. One, because gosh, I love him so much.
Yes.
But mostly because coming in as a rookie, I figured he would get tested. I figured offenses would, opposing quarterbacks would be like, hey, let's see if this rookie's really the real deal. He is. And
Yeah.
he didn't do great, but he was my highest scoring corner on my team. So it paid off.
Well, he didn't do great fantasy wise.
Correct.
NFL wise, I think
right.
he's the highest graded corner in the league.
Oh,
wasn't he?
He was a defensive rookie of the year. I mean, yeah. That dude was
That's
phenomenal.
what I'm saying. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yes, sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's so much of that, but it's not even just that. Then you also the subtleties within an actual position where the number 1 guy might only score 20 more points than the number 10 guy for the whole season. But at another position, the 1 guy scores 60 more points than the number 10 guy. So things like that matter because in that position, that number 1 guy is far more valuable than the 1 guy at another position. So you need to know your players in this thing, but with so many positions, so many different scoring parameters per position, that to me is even more vital in your head than the players themselves.
It is extremely intense. Honestly, I should spend all of my time just on this league. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. But in order to do it right, that's something that you should do because it is very, very intense. And for me, I am stuck. I am in the worst position possible. When you're in a dynasty, you either want to be fighting for a title or in a complete rebuild. The place you don't want to be is in the middle. Well, I told you I drafted 9th overall, and there are 16 teams. I am right in the middle. Now, that being said, this league, I saw a score of 133 points one week. I saw a score of 333 points in one week because you have 19 or 20 starting players. The scores vary wildly. In a normal league, you may have 4 or 5 games in one week that are separated by 3-4 points. In this league, that doesn't happen very much because of the variances in the scoring and the products, the final product scoring, whatever. For me, I lost 3 games by a total of 8 points. That doesn't happen very much, and that was with Brady and Stafford. Now, if I get those 3 wins, and I lost one by 3 points, okay. So let's say we take those 4 games, put them together. I'm +2 in the win column. That makes me the 5 seed. That puts me in the playoffs. And if my math serves me right, if I looked at the seeding correctly, I would have won the first round of the playoffs. So I was that close to thinking I would be a championship caliber team. And maybe I am. I got some good pieces. I got Christian McCaffrey and Stephon Diggs. But I'm also just as close to selling everything, trading McCaffrey, trading Diggs, trading all these good Myles Garrett, getting rid of those guys and just gaining tons and tons of draft capital and using that to build my team back up. I have a few young pieces that are nice. I have, Chris Olave is probably my golden boy on the team. And obviously, CJ Stroud now. We'll see how this draft goes. But I'm going to let this season play out. And if I finish towards the top, then I'll stick with it and see if I can push for a title. If I make the playoffs, you know what I mean? If I don't, then I'm thinking I'm just going to rip it all down, sell off these pieces.
Sell to the highest bidder.
Right, and build back up.
When's your trade deadline?
I don't know off the top of my head. I would guess sometime in November,
week
early
9,
December,
week
maybe
10, something like that.
Probably. I will say, so I got a QB. I needed that. I also need tight end, as right now, Austin Hooper and Noah Fant are my best tight ends, and defensive tackle and defensive end. Everyone can use a running back, so that too. But those are my big needs. I picked 209. No way Jalen Carter is going to fall that far. I actually might even try to put in some draft picks and move up to see if I can get someone. I'm not sure, man. I mean, it's so fluid. This how this whole draft goes, and we'll see.
So
We're
let me
gonna have
ask
to
you
make
this.
some moves, that's for sure.
Some of these guys truly know what they're doing. Others are just names that don't know any more about this than us, and a lot of them probably know less than us. Is there a number of guys in the league that, or at least in your conference, that just throwing Sauce out there, the fact that he's such a big NFL name could garner you some really over the top fantasy stuff because these people, some of them, maybe you have even that one guy that's just not bright enough to know, well, he's sort of useless in this league. But you know what? It's Sauce Gardner. I'm going to pay. I'll give him my top 2 picks next year.
Well, no one's gonna do that. But
I'm just throwing out a
right,
for example thing.
that is a great question because I have absolutely no idea what that answer would be. Now I can go through all 15 other teams and look at their rosters and check out who they have at corner. And if they're weak, maybe I could put his name out there. I don't know. Could I get a third round pick? Like I said, I got from the next to last pick in the fifth round last year. Could I get a third round pick? Could I get even a fourth round pick
Even
would still be
more.
value from where I got him. I don't think anyone would give up more than the third round pick for a corner.
Okay, that's what I was asking. That's what I was asking. Because another big part of any league, you're in, regardless of the format, is the other people in it. And all it takes is that one person who makes the stupidest decisions. And that's the one that everybody goes after, who ends up potentially giving you a second and a third for one guy that you got in the 15th. Just because of
Right.
name recognition, because he didn't necessarily know him last year, but he knows who he is now and doesn't realize he doesn't really score much in your league, but he gets suckered into it. It happens all the time in leagues, right?
Oh yeah. And you know what's interesting? Now looking back at the draft from last year, I only draft Olave was the only offensive player I drafted. Every other guy I got was defensive.
Oh, I remember
And
when we were going through it all. Yeah,
yeah,
each for each pick.
yeah. So all right, this is perfect. So Dr. Roto, who's big time guy on Sirius, I like him a lot. His team is stacked in this league. But he took David Bell, the wide receiver from Cleveland, one pick before I took George Karlaftis. David Bell might not see the field this year after the Browns brought in Elijah Moore and drafted Cedric Tillman, and they still have
I
Amari
read the other day he
Cooper.
might not even make the team.
Right. George Karlaftis, towards the end of the year, started playing more and producing more. He's going to end up being the starting defensive end there for
Yeah,
Kansas
he
City.
was nice in the
And
playoffs too.
right. And they're going to unleash him. So that makes me feel great about and the pick after Karlaftis was Malik Willis.
Dude,
I
I
mean, that
remember
makes
this happening. I remember how excited we
yes.
were to get Karloftis because you and I think, matter of fact, if I vaguely remember, I was on my way in from tennis and we were so excited because we were targeting him and he fell to us and we were just elated, mostly just because we love him, not necessarily because any other reason, just because we love the dude and you wanted to have him on your team.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic. Um, so I think, and my picks from last year, I also got Leo Chenal. Remember the linebacker? I got him with what was it? My next to last pick, I think. Yeah. Also, Kansas City Chiefs rookie linebacker last year. I'm very interested to see how these young guys are going to pan out because if Sauce can improve fantasy wise a little bit more, Karloftis plays a full complement of snaps, and Chenal gets out here and gets a starting gig, then all of a sudden my defense is a whole lot stronger than it was last year.
Yeah.
And then I am up there pushing for a championship. So
So I'll throw a name out.
mhm.
Mr. Jack Campbell. Where would you consider taking Mr. Jack Campbell? He's
Another problem with this size and scope. of this draft is that there are so many different positions you could take. I need a tight end, but is Luke Musgrave, if he's there, is he going to outscore Jack Campbell? Probably not, but it's a much sexier pick to take that offensive player. I mean, am I going to do the same thing I did last year? An offensive player in the first round and just defensive players after that? Maybe I will.
Points are points. And like I said, how it's weighted, your needs, this, that, and the other.
Jack
it's
Campbell's
tough.
coming into a
It's
starting gig.
complicated when you have so many positions.
Mm-hmm.
It's like six of one, half a dozen of the other. You don't really need it. You got to make it all work, make it all gel. Because just like any league, if you have 6 linebackers all dominating, but you can only play two of them, well, you just have really great players on your bench, and you're suffering in other positions. So you really have, even more than just with the offensive players, you've really got to be able to juggle every position, because you don't want to sacrifice having some really strong players, but then sacrifice all 5 other positions, because then it ends up just moot anyway.
You have 50 guys on each roster.
Yeah.
These rosters are huge. And so when you have that many players, and this is another nuance to a league like this, you have so many start-sit decisions. And it has much more of a bigger impact because there are, 18, 19, 20 starters to pick from, and you have 50 guys on your team. It's a lot easier to pick the wrong guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, should I start Baker Mayfield this week or Jared Goff?
It'd be cool in a league this size with this many players, offense and IDPs, to have like a little side pot that each of you puts in an extra just $10 for the whole year of a best ball. And it just figures it out alongside it for the year, like where the decision-making didn't come. It's just a best ball, your best 2 linebackers, your best 2 corners, your best 2 running backs, your best 3 receivers, and not even so still have the main league and the main money, all the decision-making. But let's just see on the side who's best. Because Bob Parasoliti used to do it in the leagues. Bob, sports writer up here, who recently retired. Yeah. And he had a league where we had a kitty on the side. It wasn't even best ball. It was your original draft team. Whoever you drafted that day at the draft in his basement, he counted up the points for the whole season for just those guys. And that person got the prize money of all the money you had to spend for pickups all year. The person won that. And it was just based on strictly your draft and the points everybody got you. So if you had a guy that got hurt right away, well, he wasn't going to get you any points for the whole year. So that was a 0 of those 21 spots. So we still played the whole league, but you had this tiny little kitty on the side for something more along the lines of what we're talking about, like a best ball type thing when you have so many positions. It's pretty neat, actually.
Yeah, I like that. That's interesting. But so let's say you go and you lose, like you win the best ball, but lose the league. That tells you how terrible you are.
Tell you you're a great general manager, but a horrible head coach.
Yes, that's exactly it. Boy, I don't know how I'd feel about that.
Oh, it could be vice versa too.
Yeah,
awful be very in the best ball and still win the league because luck of the schedule. You just happen to pick the right quarterback each week. Things like that. So that it could happen the other way.
And that's a real thing. I actually would like that a lot because I'd want to know where I stood on both sides of that coin. It's
a neat thing because you can really see how it would pan out if you played all the right people.
In my league of record, there was a year where I had Tom Brady and Russell Wilson. And without exaggeration, I started the wrong one every single week except on their bye weeks.
Yeah.
Literally in the championship game, I can't remember. I think I started Brady and I lost the championship game by like 6 points, but Russell Wilson outscored Brady by 15 or something. All I had to do was pick the right quarterback in that championship trophy's mine. But that's tough, man. They say if you got 2 quarterbacks, you got 0. And that was me.
Brutal.
It's
brutal.
I know. It happened to me in this league last year. I got Brady and Stafford. I only picked the right one when Stafford got hurt.
You and I are good at picking wrong players. I don't know how many times in the once and done.
No,
I played,
we're great.
Last week, this guy got 27. This week, the week I played, we got 4. Next week, he gets 25. But it's just how it works, dude. It's tough.
Well, by the way this draft is going, like I said, it started Monday at 10 a.m. It is Wednesday at 10 p.m.
Let's say by week 1, you should have your
We're not even done the first round.
We're done by week 1.
When we're next week when we do our show, I'll let you know how my second round pick was. It's unreal.
And it's funny, if I remember from last year, the later rounds don't go any faster.
No, really.
They just
and I get it. We're all
still everybody's taking their time.
My pick took some time because I was doing the honeydew list. I was pressure washing the driveway for like 2 hours, but then I put out some trades, put some feelers out, see if I could move anything. And I waited another hour or two just to get a reply. And then I put in my pick. It's like four total hours.
And these early picks should take a little longer. Same as the NFL draft. They're very important for the future. But later, because they don't change the parameters, right? It's a 10-hour time slot the whole way through, right?
Yes, I do believe so.
Yeah. Instead of and it's because people have lives, you have jobs, you have this. Some people have jobs that they can't just be sitting there staring at their email or staring at myfantasyleague.com. They simply can't do it. So you don't want to penalize people, but you can find somewhere in that 10 hours to put in something.
I don't mind
somebody
slow
else put it in for you, do something.
I don't mind it. All right. Anything else from you, sir?
I'm all good, brother. NFL's getting interesting. I'm just waiting for L. Jackson, his 6,000 yards.
Okay, real quick. You saw he did not report to day one of
OTAs.
Voluntary.
Yeah.
When it voluntary?
Yeah. Yeah, they're voluntary.
But he chose not to show up day one. He showed up day 2, though. Do you know who showed up day 1 at Eagles? Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith. They were all out there throwing.
They're about winning. L. Jackson's about himself. He's made it very clear. We've made it very clear.
And how much you want to bet that the only reason he showed up day 2 is because he got backlash? Like John Harbaugh called him and was like, dude, we just gave you $250,000. Can you please show up? Oh my gosh.
They probably called mommy and asked her to make him come.
Dude, I feel bad for you guys, man. He's not the guy. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, he said
he's not going to win.
I don't mind that he's there, but I wouldn't have minded if he was going either. I would have loved to just blown it all up, start over, because I think this will be another year. They're going to go like 10-7, maybe squeak into the playoffs one and done. As they'll be the end of that. They can't hang with the Bengals. They can't hang with the Bills. They can't hang with sure as hell can hang with the Chiefs, Chargers, probably even the Dolphins. They just can't beat these teams. They just can't. And it certainly can't be
third in their division. Playoffs. You're going to finish third in your division if you're lucky.
Well, I don't know about that.
Depending on how much Kenny Pickett improves, because they beefed up that O-line in Pittsburgh. They beefed up the defense.
I'd be surprised. I think Pittsburgh's 1 year away from really being a strong team.
I think.
I'd really be surprised if the Ravens don't come in second, barring injury. But in a vacuum, I think they'll come in second, but I still think it'll be like 10-7, nothing stellar. They'll be the 6 or 7 seed. They'll lose in the first round. And then we have another off season of a bunch of whiny little babies and me annoyed that we don't get a new head coach.
You finally got that new OC.
Dude, like I told you, I just hate mediocrity. I'd rather just suck.
That's why being in the middle of a dynasty thing is terrible.
Yeah, it is. It's the worst. And that's why we're mediocrity, because we have a starting quarterback who is mediocre work ethic. So, get out of a lot of these things. Sports more than anything. You get out what you put into it. Don't want to work at it. You're not God. You're not this magical being because you had one good year 5 years ago. You haven't done it since. Rest on your laurels while everybody else is working. What happens? Get passed by.
All right, sir. Let's do this thing. Everybody, thank you all for listening. Check us out on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, sometimes Twitter. He's Kevin. I'm Bobby. Thanks again. Y'all are great. Get Your Bell Rung Football Podcast.
See you, folks.
See ya.